Hi everyone. Hello, welcome to Band of Badgers. I'm Dave, your host for this session, and joining us as our Q&A guest this time is Richard August. Hi, how you doing, Richard?
Not bad at all, thanks. How are
Good,
you?
good. I'm. It's been a long week. What can happen after 2 years of pandemic and today the world changed yet again. So we're doing something a little bit different. Um, Now, if you didn't know, Richard is the writer on Epic Encounters from a company called Steamforge Games, amongst many other titles under his belt. But we're kind of going to be focusing on Epic Encounters for this kind of thing. But if you have questions, do shout them out. And joining me, as always, is our co-host Steve. And so, if you do have a question, Steve is the one who's going to be shouting it out, not me. I've got too much going on. This is so much to manage. To do all this, I rely on Steve. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good, thank you. Yep.
Yeah,
It's
all right.
it's
Then.
it's
Short and
it's,
sweet.
it's yeah, it's been one of them weeks, really, isn't it?
It has. As we all know, things can change.
Yeah.
Um, so, with all of that introduction out of the way, we're going to jump straight in. Richard, first of all, we'll start with an easy one. Oh, actually, I have a different question. I was going to mention this, but I will now. So, when we spoke about, I think it was last week or week before, you took time out of your Alien game and for us to have a chat. What happened? Did you win? Did you survive? Did you die?
We did all survive.
Oh,
It was a close run thing, but we all got off. We got off the planet,
right.
and none of us were. I think maybe one of us was infected. But realistically for an alien game. We'd all done. We were very professional.
That was good. I mean, you did it well. Did lots of communication
Yeah,
in team. Did you all play your parts right? Everyone was like, you got your
yeah. I mean, it was like I say. It was like. I mean, three of us have played together quite a lot, so that did help
yeah,
with unity. And the fourth player kind of tagged along and knew, kind of left it to the hyper prepared people. Who amazing? I'm amazed none of us fucked each other over. That was the main surprise. I was convinced. Sherwin won't be watching this, but Sherwin is the kind of person who will fuck you over in a game just in order to see what happens, and he didn't. So that was great.
I ran the game for the first time, and when I did, we had one of our players who was the
So
engineer.
was you playing the starter box,
Me or Richard?
Richard?
who,
Was you
who
playing
you
the starter
interviewing?
box?
Who you interviewing?
Sorry,
I know you've played the starter box. Was you
no,
playing the starter box scenario?
no, it wasn't the Starbucks. I can't. I think it was the GM's own scenario. It,
Right.
it
Okay.
it was definitely one of the kind of cinematic, fixed scenarios. You are in a difficult situation. Aliens are happening. Get out of there because and we were pretty much the kind of engineering crew who had been
Yeah.
kept away from all the corporate shenanigans, but now the corporate shenanigans had grown teeth and were eating everybody. So that was the kind of premise. It was a really good game.
Cool. So we'll get back on
We
topic.
got sidetracked.
Anyway, so Epic Encounters. This is the usual thing for us anyway. So we'll talk about Boba Fett in a minute. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how Epic Encounters came to be?
Certainly. So I'm from Manchester. I've been gaming sort of since I think like most British people of a certain age. Games Workshop was the first game, my entry into geek games.
Mhm.
But I was never any good at the painting. So when I discovered that in RPGs you didn't need to paint anything, you just needed a couple of books. That was it for me. So after various misadventures and a little bit of time out of gaming and coming back and starting writing, I was very, very lucky. I got a job at Steamforged, and one of the sort of first project meetings I had with Matt Hart, who's kind of our presiding genius and Dark Lord. Um, he kind of said, "Well, what I really have always wanted is an adventure in a box."
Mhm.
And sort of Steamforged had an established reputation for really cool minis and board games and stuff. So we had kind of all this expertise. How do we transfer it into role playing games? And it was kind of it was very much Matt's idea. And then I started kind of iterating on what it could be and how we would write the books. And between Matt and I, we came up with the formula for the boss boxes. And then I kind of, was like, I think a more traditional adventure for the minion boxes is possibly a good way to go. And then you've got, you can pick this up, run this, and then you can have that kind of more, I suppose, more advanced GME kind of thing with the boss. I think you need like a little trail of breadcrumbs to get you to where you're willing to really fuck your players over,
I think
the boss box is definitely required.
That's one of the things which make it so interesting, because you get these. It's like a 2-part series, so it's not just a one shot in a box. You actually get a 2. You connect those stories. I mean, like here's the boxes. The people at Band of Badgers. We've played these several times all around the tables, various barbecues and things. This box, you get 20 minis in every single box, so you get like the army you have to plow through, which are great fun. And then you get these monsters, and the monsters are the classic monsters. We have dragons, we have hydras, and then you throw in something different. So for anyone who knows this series that we're playing, do check us out on YouTube. We're going to be playing the Serpent Folk and the Snake God has literally just come on screen now. These are beautiful stories, really well written, because you're a writer, so
Thank you.
but the format, as you say, is very cinematic driven. This is not a book you have to read. This is an A5 booklet, so you don't have to suck in tons of information, tons of rules. It's based on the 5e, and I absolutely love it. The speed you can get playing is phenomenal.
That was definitely one of the main things we wanted, was that you could open it up, and if you had some character sheets, you had some people around the table, you could be playing in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I think certainly GMing for D&D, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of prep time. It's a lot of thought, and GMs need some help and some love, and Epic Encounters was kind of an attempt to do that, while obviously giving people cool minis if that's what you want as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned.
I have a question about the book actually. Can I butt in?
Yeah.
So we've had one from Sean TW. I will ask that one in a minute, but I'm going to get my own question in first. So, because it is an A5 booklet, as Dave describes, and you've obviously got to get enough in there where, like, you're laying down this trail of breadcrumbs from A to B, because you do need to guide the party, because players will want to wander off and do other things. That is their natural level. Is it hard to write something that's short but got enough information here? Because bearing in mind these are intended to be played in a short amount of time.
Well, I've written enough of them now that it's kind of, there's a formula. I know the beats you have to hit to get there. Yeah. But creating that initially was a lot of work. So certainly the boss boxes went through 4 or 5 different iterations, and the adventure books did too, where you're kind of trimming away what's necessary, what's fat here, what do we need, what don't we need. So like, the lore section and the hook section at the start are kind of really, I would say, the only parts in there where we are dealing with plot or background. Because I mean, you look at even really great campaigns today, they have whole 2-3 A sides, A4 sides of campaign background and history, which you need to know if you know how if you want to know how things interact and how they work. That is a lot of prologue that the GM has to deal with. So I'm always of the opinion that if you give GMs a couple of ideas, they'll fill in the rest themselves. That actually, kind of lots and lots of history, lots of detailed history isn't strictly necessary. So if you give them a couple of ideas, you throw some cool bits at the wall, the GM will pick off what they like and what works for their campaign. And that's usually enough for a story. Role-playing games work on elemental stories. There's a reason that people love it in an RPG when they go, oh, I know what this story is.
Yeah.
I remember this. Oh, have you just seen that film at the cinema too? And that's because I think RPGs are very much about a kind of shared language of storytelling. Yeah. So if when you're opening the book, you see those kind of things and you realize that you're not being told, you're not being preached to, you're not being explained, this is what you have to do. It's a dialogue with the writer and the GM. I think that's a really healthy and creative space to put GMs in.
That's a good way to describe it. I like that. So that segues into Sean's actual question, which I will now ask. He's saying, what medium do you find influences the creation of your encounters more? Do films and books play a part in inspiring your epic set pieces?
Definitely. So as I was telling Dave and Steve earlier, so the Snake God and the Serpent Folk are hugely indebted to my undying adoration of Indiana Jones and specifically Raiders of the Lost Ark. So there are lots and lots of references in both in terms of on the Snake God mini, the sculptor, our lead sculptor Russ Charles, knowing how much I love Indiana Jones, sculpted in the little idol of the Havitos. There's a little fedora hat. There's a whip. There's, if you look at the map for the Serpent Folk chamber, the floor tiles are the same or very, very close to the same as those in the Hall of Warriors, the trap-filled temple at the start in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that one is pretty obvious, I think. But yes, you can see there. So obviously when Indiana Jones goes in and he presses down on the central part with the torch and the start. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, to me, best film ever made. Indiana Jones. So that was a great thrill to be able to do, and fortunately, a lot of people, map makers, Tom Lishman, I think, did that, and Russ Charles, who did the minis, enabled my deep and unhealthy love of Harrison Ford's films. But I also take a lot from history. There's a lot of, and then of course, your classic films, pulp and cult literature, Shakespeare. There's Shakespearean references all over the place. I think, if you're a writer for role-playing games specifically, you want to draw from everywhere, as broad a base as possible, because I think it's very, very easy to get pigeonholed into doing versions of geek media, I think, and that can be great. That's not me saying that's not what you shouldn't do that. There's huge amounts of ground to be made there, but if you can expand that to include and incorporate as much of kind of literature and philosophy and history and stuff, you get so many more ideas and so much unexpected stuff that you're writing one day and you think, oh, that's a cool hook, or that's an interesting approach. So basically as broad a base as possible, I think, is always preferable.
Specifically talking about the Serpent Folk, and in terms of the story, as you said, there's two things I want to follow up on. You mentioned about the lore and history of an area, and you get Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, and they have source material, source books, which are hundreds of pages of just information, like where the market store is, where to buy fresh fruit, where to buy your toilet paper. You don't need any of that because the GM can kind of make it up as they go. And actually, in terms of the Serpent Folk, reading through the beginning, the setting, how to set the scene, and you've got this kind of thing where somehow, some why reason, the heroes are in this bunch of ruins and they know this thing has awakened, and we kind of catch up with them during the last fight and then the boss fight, and that's lovely. So you don't have to worry. So we've been doing this as kind of like bounty hunters. We mean, there's a frost giant, go sort him out. We meet the orcs, and away we go. But this is, whatever happens, by mistake, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. But they know they have to stop this thing because it's going to awaken a dark evil. So they're the only people who can stop it. The rest of the world doesn't know, completely oblivious this is going on. And we go in. And I love that kind of scene setting that you can do as a GM, as a narrator, to tell the audience, to tell the players, right, we're going to set the scene, go, and then you're in. And this is all these boxes are high kind of combat, high combat scenarios, which I absolutely love. but set in a specific location. It could be the Kobold Village, or Serpents is like 2 sets of chambers. They're really well structured. That's why I think they're so easy to pick up. And then the next thing about them is you have these sections where you have the map, as we've seen previously, but you have these numbered areas. So the numbers just say, here's some things in that room that do things at different times during the event. Follow it in this pattern and see what the players do. And I love that because, again, there's not a lot of information you have to keep track of. You know in your head, okay, well, there's a crystal, there's a hole in the floor, there's circular holes in the walls. You know what these things are going to do. So when the players go near them, you just need, okay, this is what happens.
I think, yeah, using player curiosity to GM's advantage is a big thing, and I do think so. And this is definitely a Matt Hart thing. So I have to tip my cap to him. Is that he is very conscientious and concerned about the difference between adventure design and encounter design.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, as the name says, these are encounters. That is, they are specific beats, specific elements within an overarching adventure. Now, I like to think that the kind of minions boxes, you could fairly easily attach a couple of preliminary scenes and a couple of outro scenes and have, your kind of 4-hour session there.
Yep.
But the boss boxes are definitely, they are a single, as you say, combat heavy encounter.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 things kind of there. One is the structure is vital because it has to be a structure which is interesting to the players because, everybody knows the kind of the tedium that can happen in a combat when it just becomes I roll, I hit, damage, you roll, you hit, and blah, 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 blah. So giving people, incentivizing players coming up with cool, weird ideas is really important to encounter design, and making sure there are choke points, cover,
mm-hmm.
things for them to use tactically.
As a GM, I love getting my players to use the environment. I use a lot of miniatures anyway, but I also use dungeon terrain and everything else. Even Steve will know, he was in the campaign. We did Pathfinder Rise of the Rune Lords, and there was a frost cavern, or like they set off a gas cloud, poison gas cloud. I just used cotton wool, so just put it around the miniature. There you go. And everyone's like, really? I went, yeah, but it's on camera. It looks good.
I think that's a great idea.
I love that whole thing of like, you just have a lever in the wall. What's that do? Well, find out.
I do think that is you're right. There is a massive difference between encounter design and adventure design, and keeping everyone at the table engaged whilst somebody else is rolling is difficult at times. So making things happen because there are elements that occur during that encounter that forces them to pay attention as well. Otherwise, they're gonna either miss out on something or get hit. So I think that is a very key element.
It's definitely something we wanted to put into them, and I think it's come out more as the sets have matured. Certainly, I think the Kobold one was perhaps more of a kind of straight dungeon bash in a way, and while there were some little elements, I think they've matured in terms of how they interact with player expectations and player curiosity. And players, if they see a lever in a wall, one player is going to pull it.
Yeah.
And I think I always like to give a D6 table for that, because I just think that's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
I do have a lot of OSR kind of sympathies when it comes to, I just think it's fun to kind of chuck a dice and see what happens.
Yeah.
And those kind of occasions are perfect for that little bit of surprise. Maybe this was a really good idea that you pull a random lever in an ancient temple. Maybe it was this time, or maybe you get hit with a spike trap.
So one of the boxes we played, it was a minions box. it was the second one we played, not the first one. So we sort of got the flavour in the second box set. We did really well. We got through the first bit unscathed. We flipped the map over. We're playing the first room on the second half of the first box. There's a corridor over a lava pit, and then there's a corridor goes down. So it was a little bit of an encounter, and we sort of overcame that. And then we got completely screwed over because some of us decided that we weren't going to go through the little hole because it definitely was going to take some of our weight. So some of us went off one way, and some of us decided to do a lava tunnel, and ended up getting split up, getting trapped, getting ambushed, and from doing really well and having loads of hit points and feeling a bit cocky, we just got absolutely battered by our own stupidity and our own curiosity.
Never split the party, Steve.
Yep.
Never split the party. This is basic.
But it's just like you knew the writer has put that small little cavern there, and there's that small little crack on the picture on the map, and it's like that's just catnip to a player. Right, let's just go over there, look at that, and then decide to go off and do something else, and then the odds are stacked against you from that point.
But that was great, and as a GM,
it was great, and you're creating the memorable moments as well.
Yeah. And that's something. This is everyone loves those big kind of combat scenes, and everyone loves seeing something new and original. And I think having that was the Kobold Queen, Chamber of the Kobold Queen, and like when she starts flying around the chamber, that was epic. We're in the Orc King, finding orcs riding polar bears. That was cool. And you see this bear with an orc. It's like, what? What are you on about? And it's armored. It's a polar bear. Like, what? That was it. And that's right at the start of the adventure.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, this is amazing. And it just gets your attention. I mean, there were so many good kind of orc minis in there. Even, was it the Gutbusters? I think they were. They got beer mugs with spikes
Grog
on
Masters.
Grog Masters.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, there was so much cool stuff going on. We've had a load of... We've had a lot of other questions come in.
So I've actually got one that's along similar vein of what I was talking about from Baron. So you must have heard a few stories by now of how players have dealt with your encounters, and do you have a favourite that you've heard?
That is a good one. That is a very good question. I think it has to be the the player who was fighting it was Swamp of the Hydra. And the player who thought basically that the Hydra, it did various attacks, kind of 4 standard attacks from each of it, one from each of its heads, and then the GM used one of its surprise attacks, which is this bit where it picks them up and tears them in two, and they were torn in two, and I believe they were quite upset with the GM. But I mean, if you're standing in front of a Hydra, I think this is I think that's one of the things with epic encounters is that it's giving the big monsters different attacks that players haven't seen is so valuable to GMs because and this isn't to criticize 5e necessarily, but the big monster stat blocks are fairly fairly uniform. They have a couple of big attacks. They might have a breath attack or something special. If the really big ones have some legendary actions, and if you're a that kind of player, or if you just you play a lot of D&D, you'll probably remember what it's going to do. And that is not how things work in films. And that's not how things, the big cinematic battles are cinematic because you have, rising and ebbing fortune. You have, it looks like the fight's going well, and then the beast does something that characters and the audience never expect. And it changes things around. And that's what we wanted to capture in the big monsters special abilities and lair abilities and cinematic abilities was something players didn't expect and didn't know was going to happen. That they couldn't predict and legislate for, because players do. People know what if the dragon's breath attack is gonna use it early on and it doesn't it recharges on a 5 or a 6. well, you stick your fighter in the way with the big heavy shield, and they absorb most of it, and everybody kind of dodges away, and then you're fine for a couple of turns.
Yeah.
Well, no, because what if it smashes its tail into a lava pool, and suddenly you've got more fire everywhere?
Yep.
Or what if it just flies above the ground and decides, no, you can't hit me now? Or it does all these different things. And I think giving GMs those options is valuable, so that people don't expect, people don't know what to expect, but also reminding GMs that you can do this stuff, that you can really play with what players think is coming, because as a GM you've got so much going on that it's easy to forget, I should do something weird and different now.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're thinking, well, he's got this is next in initiative. Well, if you've got a little booklet that if you're feeling, you think, oh, this fight might, it's just turning away, or it's losing some of the drama, I'll flick through here, here's something cool, boom, you're back. And, everything kind of starts flowing again.
You mentioned the Hydra, and we've played that. That was our last game we played. And in the box, it comes with a tracker. And I was like, well, what's this then? It's a head tracker. It's the number of heads the Hydra has. And I think the large mini comes, I think, with 7 heads. So I started at 7. I was like, here you go, 7-headed Hydra. And they're like, what? Well, it's fine. We'll see what happens. And the way I play games is very much like computer games, where there was debris and crates and rubble and stuff like that. So I've got the little barrels. And they know that a red barrel explodes. So then they were starting to kind of use that, and they use the environment. But yeah, they went up to 10 heads.
We didn't have any fire.
Yeah, they had no fire.
There was red barrels. We had no fire. So that was.
They couldn't light them.
Yeah.
So I gave them all the tools, and but they did it in the end. But it was again, it's a great combat experience. There was another question that came in from Vrexsaurus. Thank you very much for joining us.
I was going to jump that one and ask one that was still on the topic of monsters, because it was a very quick question.
Okay.
Which of all the creatures you've created that are not including the big bads are your favourite?
That's a good question. Oh no, in the undead arena of the undead horde box, there is the big. In fact, there's 3. Oh, there's 3 in that box. There's the kind of the undead centaur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With the scythe. Then there's that one. That one was designed by a sculptor. I cannot remember. I'm sorry to the sculptors if they're watching. I cannot remember who it was who designed that, and I put rules to, but it was amazing. Then there's the Leonite, which is like the undead lion, the skeletal lion. That one was one of mine. I love that. And then my favourite is the Andabator, which is, and this is where drawing from history is a cool thing. Andabator is the term for a gladiator who supposedly fought blind. So I thought, well, that is really, really unfair unless it's an 10 foot tall undead thing where realistically sight doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the inspiration for that. How do you make a blind gladiator, a gladiator who was deliberately blindfolded to provide entertainment for the crowd? How do you make them go from being kind of mildly comical and a sad indictment of what Romans thought was fun to being something genuinely terrifying? And I thought, make it a giant skeletal monster with a huge mace.
So you're worrying Steve. We haven't played that one yet, so you're worrying Steve now. So if any of my players are watching, be afraid. It's all you've got all that to come. Fantastic. The Vrexsaurus. Thank you for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe, please. Who says, would it be possible that future epic encounters came with cards and rules that would enable usage in Bardsong? And that's quite an interesting question. Are any of these universes connected? Could that be a crossover?
I believe our official answer at the moment is no.
Mm-hmm.
That is, there is never, but that's, you never say never on that front. And there is already cards in the Lost Level set, maybe, I'm thinking, for Bard Sunk, which is, delivering soon. And nearly all of the existing Epic encounters, I think up to and including the 2 Undead sets, which were the latest releases, have cards in them. So there is cards for those minis. So whilst it's unlikely Epic encounters will have those cards put in, if you are a Bard Sung backer, and I think the Lost Levels is going to be available at retail.
Yep.
Dave.
I am.
You should be able to use those in your games. And yeah, some of the Sherwin and Fraser, who were the design and development on Bard Sung, did an amazing job. It's a fantastic game, and those encounters are very, very cool, and they are not pleasant.
We've mentioned some of the writing, what you're writing against Epic Encounters. You just mentioned like the design team. Can you do a quick kind of recap on what comes first? Is it like a team effort when you write the stories? Do you need to see some of the artwork? Do you see the minis first? From a design team and writer team.
That's a great question. So obviously there's a split. Obviously Steamforge has its board game and mini game designers and devs, and then it has RPG, and the RPG team is me predominantly, and Alex Delaney, who's also just recently joined as a full-time member, and so most of it is me. Obviously we work with some really great freelancers, but when we're designing an Epic Encounters box, it's quite a free-form process originally. So usually there's at least a couple of sculptors in there. Matt Hart is often in there, and it'll be we'll start talking about, so what are we doing next? What's the next one? And then once you've got that, you kind of, obviously there is a rough formula. So you're going to want a boss. You're going to want some cavalry. We're going to want a ranged threat. We're going to want something different. Sometimes that's just big, beefy guys. Sometimes that's a really, like a completely different creature. So like in the Serpent Folk box, you've got the Bone Nagger. Yeah. So you want all these different elements. So what are they going to look like for this core theme? And then, of course, you can just start kind of, you can get, the sculptors have some crazy ideas. I have some very crazy ideas, some of which are so crazy they've had to be turned down. I wasn't allowed guerrilla cavalry.
Oh no!
No, they would not allow me people riding gorillas into battle, and I will get that one day, because I cannot think of anything cooler than gorillas thundering across a plain and just jumping over you. Imagine how cool that would be. I will get that one day, come hell or high water.
What box did you propose that for?
I can't tell you. I will tell you. The thing they've been replaced by is just as cool.
Okay.
But
that means, Richard, that's a different box. That's a new box, an unreleased box.
We have, so obviously, given release schedules, we have we're always a couple ahead. So we have 1, 2, 3, which are pretty much done. One is more or less finished and manufactured now, and that's the next one. That is I will say it is I can tease it, sod it. It's a form of Lovecraftian undeady kind of thing. That's all I can say.
Nice.
That's all I can say.
Yep.
The one after that is really, really cool. It's a new monster type. I don't think there's ever been minis for this kind of thing. Then a classic. The boss monster is an absolute classic, and it's one of the best minis. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal.
When you say, I'm going to pick up on something. When you say new monster, do you mean new to 5th edition, or do you mean new, as in you created a new monster?
Pretty much entirely new. There are kind of versions out there, but definitely nothing explored to this depth, I don't think.
Cool. I'm hooked. I'm
Very,
on.
very. We put a lot of time and energy into and effort and a few arguments
Yeah.
into getting those right, and they are phenomenal. And I'm really, really excited for people to see those.
What's the release schedule? Is it every 3 months a new box comes out?
It's kind of 4 to 6 months
Okay.
at the minute, but we are hoping to amp that up a little bit without, without tiring everybody out and without them, becoming just one more thing on the shelf. We, we still want them to be an event when they come out, and hopefully for people to be excited to see them. But of course, what one of the things we do hope with Epic Encounters is that they're always relevant. That even if I don't think 5th edition is going to change much when kind of 5.5, whatever it is, comes out in 2024.
Yep.
They're saying everything's going to be backwards compatible. So I think, we're really just going to see incremental changes. But hopefully, even if it were to be a radically different system, I think the core stuff in Epic Encounters would still be usable. You're still going to fight kobolds. You're still going to fight serpent folk. You're still going to fight orcs. You're still going to fight frost giants. And, the adventures and stuff in there aren't going to need much tweaking. I don't think they need a huge amount of tweaking to turn to Pathfinder, for instance, or Pathfinder 2e. So
That'd be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Frost Giant with that third action.
we play D&D, we play Pathfinder, we play a lot of Free League stuff as well. So we play a lot variety. I'm happy with any rule set you use. Again, the simplicity of picking up an Epic Encounters box set is phenomenal. It's great.
So that follows on for a question from me then, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider writing your own game system?
We are definitely exploring that. There are a lot. Basically, there are a lot of ideas, a lot of cool bits and pieces. Some of them kind of went into Dark Souls, as bolt-ons to the 5e system. But I think some of those are probably going to be reused in our own game. And yeah, it's definitely something we're working on in the background. So it's I've no idea when it will kind of be finished or when we'll be happy to use it for something, but it's something we're constantly kind of tinkering and thinking about and working on. Matt and I, and Sherwin and other people who like RPGs in the team, we're always kind of chucking ideas in and seeing what we like and, buying new games and thinking about what's cool. So it's a constant kind of churn of different ideas until hopefully we'll find the thing we really like.
Yeah.
I was going to pick up on, you mentioned like the monsters and looking ahead. And actually on the Steamforged Discord, there's a channel set aside for Epic Encounters where, as Band of Badgers, we've been posting our adventures and our unboxings. Check us out on YouTube. Plug. And it was yourself and someone else mentioned, why isn't there a Band of Badgers Epic Encounters? And then I was talking to Steve about it, and we come up with a fantastic scenario of a Cerberus triple-headed giant dire badger god thing chained to an obelisk in the top of a hollowed-out mountain. That's the boss. So there you go. There's one for free.
Triple-headed badger is a great...
a giant triple-headed Cerberus type dog thing chained to an obelisk. I even sketched out what the obelisk would look like, and then of course halfway through the fight, the chain will break.
Obviously,
They think they've got it because it's chained up, and they can hit it from a distance, and then they're just going to piss it off.
I do have a kind of residual fear of badgers ever since I was walking home from the pub one night.
Badgers are mean.
And they're huge as well. They're great muscle things. Yeah. And it was trotting along the other side of the road, very much in step with me, and it glanced over a couple of times. And then I saw this black, sleek form just jetting across the road. And I thought, well, this is how I die. I'm going to be mauled to death by a badger. And as it approached, I went, ugh! And obviously it turned out to be a cat And the badger had jetted off somewhere, and a driver drove past and had just seen me.
Just do a freak out, yeah.
Yeah, have a proper freak out as this lovely, soft little cat ran past.
So the badger's like, yeah, wuss. He just kept on going. Lovely.
But I mean, there's almost like an unlimited amount of epic encounters you could do, because even just sitting here, I'm thinking, oh, you know, the next one you could do underwater. You could get sharks in there, undead sharks, massive megalodon.
Undead sharks, a good one.
But the boss encounter. Yeah, and it just does. You just sit there, and I mean, is that how one of your meetings go? You just sit in the conference room and throw ideas at each other.
It's pretty much that, yeah. We try to go in with kind of a list of, you know, the classics we definitely want to hit, because there's still some, you know, real nailed on classic D&D bad guys we've not got to yet.
Yeah.
And they're always quite near the top of the list. You know, why haven't we done X? Why haven't we done Y yet? And we will get there. You know, this is definitely a line we love. We love making them. Fortunately, we're very lucky so far. They've been really successful. There's definitely a market out there that are, you know, reacting well to them. So hopefully we will be able to do all the many ideas we've got, even possibly a three-headed dire badger. I can't promise that's near the top of the list, but I will pitch it. I guarantee it, because that shit's cool.
Yeah, we had some really good ideas for the minion box as well, and I can't remember.
I mean, I am seeing, I don't know, possibly drow on badger cavalry. That would be.
There you go.
Because I mean, they're tunnelers. That could work. I could see that working.
We had, you know, like I can't remember their name, like the bear people. And so you've basically got all the animals in bear form. So basically you had a tribe of barbarian badger people, and who worship these things. They're like a forgotten tribe somewhere. So that's the box of 20 minis. Your various kind of tribal barbarian badgers. And then, like, you know, yeah, I know that Richard's also a fan of Conan. So you've got Conan badgers, like double-headed axes, the lot. You got the whole full set of barbarian warriors, tribal warriors, and then they all believe in this mountain. It could be a volcano, but at the top is where you've got this triple-headed giant Cerberus thing, dire badger. So it's got armored. You know, the dire bits are just popping out of the flesh of the. Oh, it's great. Loads of ideas.
Bone protrusions. That's nice. Bone protrusions are an underused thing, I think.
I love them because you've got this matted, horrible fur. It could be raining. It could be sleek with mud, and you've got this kind of bowl shape, and you've got this obelisk with a hole at the top and a massive chain. How the heroes use that, because there's no cover. You're just in a bowl. And then that chain's going to break. Now, with lightning and thunder.
Here's sorry to change the direction of questions here. Who chained the badger god? Was it the Badgebarians, or was it some unknown force? And there's your second adventure.
That was the twist.
Yeah.
The Cerberus badger wasn't the bad guy.
Yes.
The bad guy was the person that chained him.
Yeah. You see, it's like badger version of Thor comes down. You know, Cerberus. He's Cerberus. He's guarding the gateway. So you have a triple layer. You've got the 20 army. You've got Cerberus badger, and then you've got something else. Literally a god form that comes down. But
like it.
I'm picturing the 13th Warrior now. Just
what a film!
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. You can put it in. Cool. There were some other questions, Steve, but the chat's wandered off.
I was going to look for them.
You mentioned actually. Let's pick up on some other bits and pieces. You mentioned Dark Souls. So Dark Souls is a new Steamforged product that came out recently. It's just been released recently, plus the collector's edition. But you also, I caught it as well. It was very. I've played Dark Souls, the computer game, and I wanted to know how it would translate to an RPG because you die a lot. So
Yes.
I wanted, well, how do you play this game? And it was really good. And you played it with Becca Scott, Omega Jones, Alexander Ward, fantastic
Yeah,
people,
amazing,
gamers
amazing
who've done.
cast.
How? I mean, you've met and chat to a load of people in the TTRPG circles anyway. But how is it? What was it like to GM them?
It's always terrifying.
Yep.
Always. That's the second time I've done it now, and I feel absolutely sick to my stomach. But fortunately, they are genuinely absolutely lovely. And that's my experience playing with, you know, the kind of those, I suppose, professional players. Isn't an unfair way of putting it. Is that they are all hugely passionate, very, very knowledgeable, and really, really lovely people, and very funny. So like my current Facebook profile photo is in fact the headshot I sent you.
Yeah.
It is now been made by Becca Scott, because the first time I did a stream, they said, "Do you have a headshot?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I don't, but I could find a photo for you." The only photo I had in which I was not in a bar or obviously having just left a bar and in no fit state, you know, no fit state or right to be taking photos, was one taken in my girlfriend's kitchen. And I was like, well, I'm really sorry. This is the only thing I've got. And obviously they were very nice about it. All these, you know, very sleek, beautiful people with their perfect, you know, professionally taken photos, and me looking like a great scruff bag. Anyway, the second time this came around for Dark Souls, I said, I'm really sorry. I still haven't got any professional ones. Becca said, don't worry about it. I'll edit it, and sent over a version of my head on top of a Dark Souls armor set. Which she then used as the professional thing. So that definitely helps with the nerves, because you don't, you know, I think if they're taking the piss,
yes,
you kind of just feel like you're GMing your normal group, really. Because I mean, that's what GMing really is, putting yourself up to have your friends take the piss out of you for 3 hours.
It's just, yeah. I'm someone who also does the silly voices of goblins or whatever. But I enjoy it. I enjoy making the players feel uncomfortable around my table. And it's great when I can scare them or get them to believe the scene, at least in their own sort of imagination. You mentioned I was going to pick up on something. It's just left my head. I was going to mention something about Becca Scott. Then I can't remember what. But she's done a hell of, that was it, a hell of a lot during the live stream. Did you see live Twitch chat, or are you just kind of playing the game?
No, I was definitely. I am far too easily distracted, so that I try and put aside anything bright and colourful and regularly updating is horrible for me, because I will just completely
use them in.
Yeah,
because you were. And if you want to go back and watch it on YouTube, you were phenomenally good as a GM. Your descriptions, everything of how you set the scene, and then so what do you do? Go on then, over to you. It was great, and there were so many people who were saying that in Twitch chat. It was great to see. And then someone said, "Who is this guy? We need him on one of those like bedtime apps to read me a bedtime story." And I was thinking, there you go. Start, because again. You got a completely American audience. They love the Brit voice, and you came across brilliantly when you were describing the set and the scene for everyone. It was like, yeah, this is good. So you need to do more. Just do more.
Thank you. I am hoping I'll get to do more, because you know it's a lot of fun. I love GMing. I have a lot of groups, and I've been very lucky as I play with a really high, and always have played with a really high quality of player. And I don't think that's the case for a lot of groups. You know, I think, you know, sometimes people can be unlucky, or sometimes, you know, people don't want to, role playing is it's a difficult thing to do, I think, because it requires you to be quite vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It requires you to put yourself out there doing something which, let's be honest, we all know is a bit silly.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and you know, silliness and play, that's a wonderful thing, but it's still, I think, if you're a grown-up, it's still quite a lot of work to do, as you say, doing the silly voices and really committing to the world you're creating. And it's always worth it when you do, but, you know, I can completely understand why some people are reluctant to or hesitate to, whereas I've been really lucky as most of the people I played with for a long period of time have been, you know, absolutely into it, committed.
Yeah.
They will put on accents, they will do the work. I think that has always helped. So basically, any kind of skill I have as a GM has been learned through work, playing over a long period of time with some amazing people. And I'm not naming them because they're tossers. But,
yeah.
if they do see this, I want them to know that I both love them and they're tossers.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have posted the YouTube video of that game that you was talking about in chat because I couldn't find it on Twitch, but I did manage to find it on YouTube, so it's there in the chat. So link it and go and watch it.
Yeah, it is definitely worthwhile. Here's a question to you. So and this kind of ties in with some of the other questions we've had on this session already. You as a writer and doing whether you've got time or not, and doing these epic encounters and the other stuff that you write, could you? And we talked about like, is this connected to Bard Sung universe? Could you take these stories and write your own novels based around these stories? Could you expand on like what happened? How did the serpents get here? What happens as the heroes start their adventure, not just get to the army of 20? Could you turn that into something? And then, because people love hearing your voice so much, turn them into audiobooks. There you go.
I would love that. It's been I wish I had, you know, the kind of a mind like Gareth Ryder Hanrahan, who can, you know, he can have 2 novels and an RPG campaign and a game system going, apparently all at the same time, and they're all amazing. I find it really difficult to switch between projects. So that, you know, I kind of have to budget my time so that if I'm working on an epic encounter, I need to give myself, this is right, epic encounter writing time.
Yeah.
I can't, you know, so for at the minute, well, I can't really talk about much of it. I'm writing the RuneScape RPG we've announced. And I need to focus on that. And then when that's done, I can move on to other things. Yeah. So I can't foresee a time in the near future where I'm going to be able to write some kind of surrounding fiction, but it is something I'd love to do because I miss writing fiction. I've not done it kind of in anger with any kind of conviction for a little while now. I wrote a couple of a short story for God Tier, which hasn't been released yet, but hopefully will be. And that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing it, and kind of using that particular muscle. Yeah. Again,
or even a series of like online short stories and things like that. Because again, the text that's written in the epics to help set the scenes are great. They're very descriptive. They really kind of help you generate that picture in your own mind. But that's for the GM. It's like, well, how, other than kind of reading it out like a narrator to set the scene to the players, how does the GM get around that? But I think you could be onto a whole series of stories there. Go for it, if you can.
Oh well, I mean, if we ever do it, if we ever do anything like that, I will be the first person writing them. Believe me. Well, it's interesting. You see, it's interesting you mentioned that I did do some read aloud text in the first adventure in the Kobolds one, but I really don't like read aloud text because I think as a game writer, what you should be doing is encouraging and helping the GM to do their own.
Yeah.
Rather than prescribing what they should say.
I agree and disagree. I agree completely. Yeah. Leave it down to the GM. Apart from in the books, at the end of the army book, like the first box, there's that tiny little snippet, and it says, "As they die, this happens." And it's like, oh, and got goosebumps. It's like, oh, it's that moment where there's something bigger. Like you've just killed the Kobold Queen, and deep down in the dark, you hear, oh, as a roar comes out and echoes through these chambers, like, shit. And then you go off to fight the Red Dragon. It's having that little kind of, but again, they're just ideas for the GM to help sell the next box, right? This is what happens now. You're in the shit now. And I did the same thing. I had the roar come up from the dragon, and it was so loud. The chamber they're in starts to crumble, and the boulders come down, and they're trapped. The only way is
nice.
down. So they have to. But every time they go up against a monster, they always shit a brick. They're always like, we don't want to see it, Dave. We don't want to. But this is the game.
Because by that point, we've been worn down to virtually nothing. I mean, I think in the Frost Giant, when we walked into that last setting, I was down to something like 3 hit points. I had no weapons left because a series of ones had occurred, and it was just like, this is suicide. Start the game. Might as well already be dead.
I mean, you are called the Expendables.
We are, yeah. That is true.
It's there on. It's in the brand name.
it is, yeah. We got
so there's another question from chat, but I was just going to jump in with another one again. So going back to what you were saying earlier about when you're writing a book and taking out all the superfluous stuff, like all the lore. I do think a lot of other games, the big ones, for example, you can just get bogged down with trying to remember everything. It's almost like getting a homework assignment, to be honest, preparing for a session sometimes in some of the big adventures, particularly if the players are well clued up on the lore and you get anything wrong, you get called out immediately. So I do like the whole approach that you've taken of just giving people pointers to some of the stuff, because you do not need to know the bartender's third cousin's nephew's name. You just don't, and you're never going to remember it. So I just want to get that in before I ask a question, if that was all right. I apologise.
Absolutely. Well, I completely agree with you. You see, I'm always torn because I understand the kind of the love of mastery that people have with lore, and I get it, and I get why it's fun, but at the same time, I think it can also be a real barrier to people. Like I love Glorantha and I love RuneQuest, but how many people go, oh, there's no way I can learn all this about Glorantha, and if I don't know X about Glorantha, then there's no point playing, because I'm either not going to get the full experience, or people who do know all about Glorantha are going to have this kind of social edge around the table or a gameplay edge. And so, I think Chaosium has done a great job with kind of the starter set and the introductory stuff for Glorantha in their new products. But I also think a lot of the time just cutting all that stuff away and going, here's half a dozen cool plot hooks, fuck off and find out what happens, is actually a much better way of starting people off.
Yeah.
Because then if you're then embroiled in the world, you'll make up your own lore, which is often as cool, if not cooler, and you'll learn by increment. You'll learn by doing, and I think that's much more fun.
And you're going to be much more invested because you've had a part in creating something. When I've GM'd in the past with Dave and before we started doing all the stream, I've always done homebrew, and half the time players will come up with an idea and I'll just incorporate that. They don't know that, but that's just what you do. They'll say something, oh, that's really cool, let's just map that in. Which
is so. Me and Steve have known each other since we were kids. So we started off on aliens. We're gonna be wrapping up soon, folks. So get your questions in. But one of those stories where you create those scenes that stay with you. I mean, we were kids. Is when we were playing D&D. So we're fantasy characters. We walked into a tunnel, and the way Steve's describing it, I'm seeing a black corridor, and there's like black pulsing vines and steam, and it's kind of getting hot and like mist, like wet in the atmosphere, and I'm like, it's fucking aliens. And I'm like, and then as you go through, you find this egg. I'm like, it's a fucking alien egg. What are you doing? And then fucking run. Then we're getting chased by aliens down this corridor. We're like, are we on a spaceship or what? What's happened? This crashed ship. And then we managed to get out. I don't know if we got out or in there. And we're talking like, oh yeah, we're huddled around like, yeah, man, we got covered in gunk and slime and there's some acid somewhere. And like, why is there 3 dots on me? What the fuck? Why is there 3 dots on me? And suddenly you hit it. And like, fucking Predator, Steve. You got a Predator coming after us. And then we hit we find the wrist nuke. And it's like counting down. We're like, fucking run. Just run. And it was great to have our players be so excited. We knew what it was. Obviously, our characters didn't. But just run. Just run. It's one of those things where you might see a film or a TV series and you're just shouting at the TV. Just run. Just run. Don't stand there and talk to the zombie. Run. Run.
I think that's the... Ken Hite, who is very rarely wrong on matters of role-playing, I think says, a cliche is not a cliche when you're inside it. Yeah. And that's one of the things that really animates role-playing games, is being able to experience cool stuff from a completely new angle as a part of it. And that's one of the reasons I think Epic Encounters works, hopefully, is that it gives you cool things you recognize, while at the same time making them different enough that they're still a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole thing came out of me playing another game, and it was a AD&D Spelljammer thing. I think it was Blackmore. I can't remember. I won't say how long ago it was because that'll give me age away. But it was a long time ago. And that was like, oh, we can have sci-fi and fantasy. So yeah. Just like you say, you just get inspired. I mean, we used to watch Alien and Aliens and Predator. They were the movies we used to watch on a Saturday morning. So
pretty much the perfect film trilogy. Those three, I reckon.
Yeah.
Those are your hangover cures as well. Late 80s, early 90s.
So we have had a couple of questions, and I will ask them so that we don't miss out. So would you consider making expansion packs for the encounters so people increase the army sizes of the enemies to really up the danger rating? So I guess like the god tier expansions that you've got, would you consider doing something for Epic?
That is a very cool idea. It's not something we've got on the radar. We do have a couple of ideas that are not massively dissimilar in terms of I suppose rejuvenating sets, I guess you might say, and giving people new ways to go back to them. So that's definitely something I think that we'll consider in the future. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but it's a cool idea.
And then the last one was you probably won't be able to answer this. What's the most damage a player has done in a single action? And do you know anyone who has beat Steve's 255 points of damage with a single arrow? So it has to be put in context.
No.
There was a lot of explosive barrels, and I shot them with an arrow that was on fire.
And the chain.
Yes, yeah.
Nice. No, I don't know anybody who's done that much. I think there's a couple of things in Dark Souls where you could really, with the right combination of abilities and weapon, you could probably do 100 points, but 255 is pretty fucking epic.
It's like it's the same as his bowling score as well.
Yeah, that's
can't be beat.
my kids don't believe me when I told them.
But it's nice that your kids are into it that much. They're also picking it up. You just created more geeks. All our kids are geeks, which is great. So we're wrapping it up now, folks. You've mentioned what's new with Steamforged, with RuneScape coming out. RuneScape. Yep. And we've kind of teased at what's new with Epic Encounters. Fantastic to hear that there's more stuff coming. Take us throughout this year and into next year. What is new for you? What's new for Richard?
What's new for me? So, to be honest, I just keep on writing stuff. That's my, and so there's definitely some cool new projects coming. which I'm including. So next week I'm starting on a really cool new epic encounters adjacent thing, which is quite secret at the minute, but hopefully it's going to be really, really cool. It's going to be quite different from anything we've done, but it's definitely closely associated with them. And it's something people have been asking for a while. So there's hopefully people will really enjoy that. But that's going to be some hard work. That's next month. Then the month after that is there's more expansions and stuff coming for new line for our current lines. So basically, I am very, very busy making sure we keep putting out awesome stuff.
Fantastic. And it is definitely awesome stuff. If you have not yet checked them out, just go to steamforge.com. Is Steamforge, was it first a UK company? Or is it because you've got both a UK and US? Presence?
So we're based in the UK. We kind of split across it. So nominally our home is Manchester, but we're all over the place really. We've got a lot of people in Essex. We've got Fraser McFetridge, our sterling designer, up near Glasgow. So we are pretty widely geographically distributed across the UK, and we've now got a couple of people in America. Ross Thompson, who's amazing, and he's shouting from the rooftops about Gautier and all other good stuff over there. And getting up horribly early to make meetings, which I always feel guilty about, but not so guilty I stopped booking them.
Well, there you go. That's always a good thing. Well, we're going to wrap it up now, folks. It's an absolute pleasure to chat with you properly, Richard, because we know how flat out busy you are. I'm a big fan of Steamforged for the past few years now, actually. Love what you do, and it's fantastic to do this stuff to support another UK-based business. We do so much with the States. It's just nice to have a chat with someone in our own time zone for a change. And when you say things like Dragon Meat and Games Expo and Salute, people actually know what you're talking about. So we'll see you at some... Laura Bones has just raided. Laura, as always... actually, Laura is based in the UK as well. Laura, we're just wrapping up. You've just missed it. We're talking about epic encounters. You'll have to watch it on replay. But thank you for raiding. Richard, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It has been great fun.
Cool. Thank you very much. And we will see everyone again very soon. Cheers, Dave, for all the questions. Was there anything we've missed? Any last questions to shout out?
No, that was it. Was
it? All done.
Yep.
Right. We'll see you again soon. Catch up on YouTube. YouTube.com/BandofBadgers. Until next time. Bye-bye.